Hey, it's Justin here from MyVeloFit. There's a lot of talk in bike fitting about ankle angle and ankling and what it can and can't tell you about your bike fit. In reality, it may not be as important as you think, but today we're gonna break down what's right, what's wrong, when you need to be concerned, and then what you can do about it. Let's dive in.
Welcome to MyVeloFit, the world's first online AI-powered bike fit. Built by bike fitters for all riders.
So there's really two components to ankling that we're going to talk about. One being your ankle angle, which is the level of plantar flexion of your foot. Typically at the bottom of the pedal stroke is what a lot of people talk about, which is just kind of like how toe down your foot is relative to the rest of your leg. And then ankling more generally often refers to the amount of change or how dynamic your ankle angle is throughout the pedal stroke. So a high degree of ankling would be someone, at the most extreme goes from a very toe down position to a very heel down position throughout the entire pedal stroke. Whereas someone with a very minimal amount of ankling would just kind of, let's say, keep their foot at one angle throughout the whole pedal stroke. And these two things, while related, can mean different things. And so we'll talk about what it is that you can tell from ankle angle and ankling, what you can't tell, and then what you want to do about it. So to kick things off, we'll just start with the idea that A, there is no perfect ankle angle, and B, ankling is perfectly normal through your pedal stroke. There's no need to chase one single ankle angle. You don't want to say like, oh, well, 18 degrees is the perfect ankle angle and I'm going to adjust my fit and pedal stroke to try and achieve that. And B, if your ankle is moving throughout the pedal stroke, that's also perfectly normal. Some degree of movement is perfectly normal, and you shouldn't be chasing just this perfectly static ankle angle throughout your pedal stroke. Cycling is dynamic, and it's perfectly normal that you're moving and your body's changing throughout that whole pedal stroke. A follow-up to that is that every rider's personal pedal stroke is also going to be a little bit different, and that's also okay. So some riders just naturally are going to be a little more toe down, whereas some riders are going to have a flatter foot during their entire pedal stroke, and that's also okay. So if you know that over time you've always been a little more toe down in your pedal stroke, that feels comfortable for you, you're not jamming into the front end of your shoe, and that's always just felt like a natural way to pedal, there's no inherent need to worry about that part of your pedal stroke and to spend a whole bunch of energy trying to fix it. And similarly, if you find that, on reviewing your pedal stroke, your foot's a little flatter, a little more heel down, we don't advise that you spend a lot of time trying to fix that in the other way either. So personal preference, our biomechanics, how we move, is going to lead to a variation from rider to rider. So when you're comparing two riders, a rider that pedals naturally more heel down doesn't mean their saddle is too low, for say, and a rider that is pointed toe down doesn't necessarily mean that their saddle's too high, which are conclusions that some people might arrive at if you kind of listen to some of the bike fit advice out there. So what have we just told you? We've just told you that basically every angle is fine and some level of ankling is perfectly acceptable. So you can just go home now and stop thinking about your ankle angle. Well, it's not actually that simple. There are some situations where ankling or ankle angle can tell us some things about our fit and considerations for how we might want to adjust our fit to respond. So the first instance where your ankling or ankle angle can tell you something about your fit is really the origin of where all this talk of ankle angle comes from, which is when riders are reaching through the bottom of their pedal stroke as a result of their saddle being too high. While some movement in your ankle angle is normal, some degree of ankling, what we do want to avoid is the knee hitting kind of the end of its functional range of motion as it approaches the bottom of the pedal stroke, and then requiring the body through the ankle and the foot to make up the bottom of the pedal stroke by extending the ankle. And what this looks like is not just a natural level of change in the ankle, but you can really see the knee angle kind of hit the end of its range, and then the rider will look to be reaching through the bottom of the pedal stroke. And we can always look at other indicators too. This often will be associated with kind of a drop in the hip as they're coming through the bottom of the pedal stroke, as they're kind of reaching through the bottom. And so it's not any one of these factors. It's not just the knee extension angle. It's not just the change in ankling. It's not just the hip dropping. It's kind of all three of those things together give us an indication that the rider is required to reach through the bottom of the pedal stroke. They're going to lose control of the pedal stroke. And that's a fantastic indicator to know that the saddle height is too high. Once you've identified that a saddle height is too high, this actually leads us into the next kind of indication in ankling that can let us know that there's something going on with the fit. And that's when, most typically, we lower a rider's saddle height. So this is especially true with riders that have been riding at a saddle height that's too high for an extended period of time. Almost guaranteed, the longer, the greater the number of years you've been riding with a saddle that's too high, the more likely this is to be the case, which is compensation at the ankle. And this is often also referred to as protecting the knee angle. And the way this manifests is you've got a rider, maybe it's you, whose saddle height is too high. You've identified that, oh yeah, I'm reaching through the bottom of the pedal stroke, maybe my hip's dropping. There's a whole bunch of other reasons you may identify that your saddle height was too high. And we start to bring it down. So we say, okay, bring it down 5 millimeters, 10 millimeters. And as we're continuing to bring it down, what often happens is that the knee extension doesn't change. So the body has developed a movement pattern that it's very used to around a particular knee extension angle. And so what our goal is when we're reducing the saddle height eventually is to bring that knee extension angle up to allow a little more bend in the knee so that it's not hitting the end of that functional range of movement. But as we're dropping 5 millimeters, 10 millimeters, 15 millimeters, we don't observe a change in that knee extension angle. And what's happening is you'll see that knee extension angle stays the same, but the ankle angle is actually changing. So rather than reaching fully through the bottom of the pedal stroke, maybe after the 5 millimeter change, you'll see a little less reaching, then the foot's gonna appear more flat. And then even what we can see is keep bringing it down, the heel starts dropping, right? So it's compensating to the point where the heel is even dropping below the pedal at the bottom of the pedal stroke because the body is trying to protect that knee angle. And this is another great indication that something's going on with your fit. And luckily, there's 2 easy approaches to resolve this if this is something you notice. The first is patience. So maybe don't try and make all those adjustments to your saddle height at once. Start with 10 millimeters, go out for a few rides, let your body kind of adapt, let it forget and stop protecting that knee angle so it relaxes into the new position, then continue with the adjustments, go for a few rides. And then the other option is more kind of like the shock approach, which is lower your saddle 4 centimeters, force your body to kind of break that knee extension angle way down, make your saddle so low that it's gotta kind of forget it, and then raise your saddle back up to the point where you want to target eventually. And those are 2 ways you can basically either ease your body into retaining your more natural level of ankling and ankle angle by either kind of like forcing it out of what's comfortable or easing into it. Finally, there's 2 other indications when evaluating a level of ankling and ankle angle that can identify something going on with your fit, and it's often around cleat position. Some riders with a very pointed toe, a high ankle angle, a lot of plantar flexion, and often around the whole pedal stroke can be an indication that the rider's cleats are way too far forward. So this is essentially if the cleats are too far forward, there's a lot of instability in the foot and the ankle. And to compensate, a lot of riders will point their foot really far down to try to stay on top of it and prevent their heel from kind of flopping around. And so reevaluating cleat position, just making sure it's kind of in line with best practices, and in general, erring towards a more rearward cleat position is gonna help resolve that. Again, this is something if you've been doing it for a long time, may take a lot of time to adjust and not something you wanna spend too much time, but a foot position, an ankle angle that's too pointed, too plantar flexed, can be an indication your cleats may be too far forward. Similarly, the other result of cleats being too far forward is a high amount of ankling. So a rider that's quite pointed over the top of the pedal stroke and then drops the heel considerably through the bottom of the pedal of the stroke indicates a lot of instability in the ankle, which often happens from the cleats being too far forward. You're just asking too much of the foot and the foot muscles to control through the whole pedal stroke. And so this is another indication that you may want to revisit your cleat position. One scenario in which we see a lot of riders concerned about their ankle angle is in more aggressive riding positions. So this can be often on a time trial or triathlon bike, and then also in kind of more modern road bike positions that are more aggressive, especially kind of like the arrow hoods position or other aggressive road positions. What we see a lot with all of these is that there will be a more plantar flexed, a more toe down riding position. And this is because with all these riding positions, Basically, the whole rider is being rotated or shifted around the bottom bracket towards the handlebars. And the impact of this is it changes your relationship with your pedals. You're more forward, you're over the top, you've rotated around that bottom bracket, and this by necessity essentially will point your toe more, and it has to do with how the power phase of your pedal stroke as you've rotated around the bottom bracket changes. And so if you notice that on your TT bike or any more aggressive road position that you're pointing your toe more, or it's a higher degree of pointing, this is perfectly normal. It's nothing to be concerned about, and it's actually to be expected. So the bottom line is that your ankle angle and level of ankling is very personal and also dependent on your riding position. So obsessing over your ankle angle or the level of ankling, how you pedal, is not a good use of your time, and settling into your own personal pedal stroke is usually going to lead to the best outcomes. However, as we discussed, extremes in the amount of ankling or your ankle angle can be indicators that your cleats are poorly placed or potentially your saddle height is too high. And then finally, observing your ankle angle, particularly if you're lowering your saddle height, can give you an indication that your body's just not adapting to the changes fast enough, and you may just want to pause, go for a few rides, and take those changes to your fit a little bit slower. But at the end of the day, don't panic about your ankle angle. Don't obsess over it. It's not going to be the end-all, be-all linchpin to the perfect fit. And just get out and ride your bike and enjoy. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. We're always happy to clarify. And if you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and you can follow us everywhere at MyVeloFit. And until next time, thanks for watching.